Good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining this morning. And Sean AI on X, thank you so much for reposting the stream. And if you're on X, please repost. If you are on Facebook, please share. And if you are on YouTube, definitely share there. And thank you all for joining me live on those different platforms. So this morning, I really wanted to just get into the spiritual side of things because I know there's a lot going on. And with that, this is a spiritual battle. We are spiritual beings. People don't want to really, they want to be dismissive of it, right? They want to use it when it's convenient, but they want to be dismissive of it mostly, right? To get us, I guess, off our footing. You know, we are spiritual beings, whether you believe in God or not. We are, and that's just it is what it is. I'm just sorry to break it to you. And with that, we have to be conscious and aware of what's going on. So I definitely wanted to share this passage, and it's in 2 Timothy chapter 3. It says, "But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, have nothing to do with such people." Right? And that's just verses 1 through 5. And it goes on, to talk about, different evils and sins, but I wanted to read those first 5 verses because you can see within there, it's like, yeah, that's where people are. There's no self-control anymore. People are brutal and they do not love things that are good. They love everything that is evil. We are seeing it. And I think it's a difference when you were maybe growing up in church. I grew up in church and, they would read passages like this and say different things. And the interesting part about it is you would be like, yeah, I guess, but you're a kid, right? So your perspective of the world is a lot different than adults. And even at that time, the adults were warning, like, hey, these things are happening. But at the same time, they really weren't holding to what they were saying, if that makes any sense. It wasn't so much hypocrisy. It was more so, and I don't want to call people lazy. I don't want to say it like that. I think they were just in that space where they thought, okay, yeah, it's coming, but it's not here yet. I have time, right? And in that I have time, they really weren't persistent with banging that drum like, look, you guys, we need to make sure that our children are prepared. We need to make sure that, these things stay in place. And I'm not saying that for everybody. I'm just saying it for some. But what ended up happening is it got to a point where it was like, well, we have to love other people. We can't be mean to these people because if we tell them no, right? If we tell them no, they'll think we're being mean. You're not being mean when you tell somebody no. You're actually loving them when you tell them no. But in not telling people no, here we are. And we have people that think that they can be the opposite sex. We have the people thinking that, we shouldn't use the words mother and father. And I know that now we President Trump is like, things are male and female, but we still have this subset of the population that's their mindset, and they are very strong in it. I'm just saying, it happened, and we're here. People are proud, they're abusive, they're unholy, and there's no self-control. In my opinion, are you going to be the one that stands up to say no to this? Are you going to be the one that stands up and says, okay, I'm not going to be a lover of pleasure, I'm going to be a lover of God? Are you, you know what I'm saying? Are you going to, be diligent and not abusive? Are you going to be forgiving instead of unforgiving? Because it takes a lot to walk that path. It isn't easy to be obedient. But are you going to do that so that others, the other people around you will see your example of being obedient and being a lover of God as opposed to a lover of pleasure? Because right now we have a lot of people that are lovers of pleasure and not lovers of God, and we're seeing how destructive that can be, not only to themselves, but to others around them. Yeah, and that's really, how I wanted to start off the show with that call this morning. There's some videos that I want to share with you guys of things that are happening in the Los Angeles area in particular. And this, I don't know if it's going to shock you, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you could kind of see this coming, and now it's here.
Agents and troops gathered at a park for what appeared to be an immigration-related operation, but the mayor claims the only thing interrupted was a children's summer camp. ABC's Christiane Cordero has details. Christiane, good morning.
Andrew, good morning. The questions being raised about that show of force come as more immigration officers come under attack, facing ambushes and assaults. This morning, new questions after federal agents descended onto MacArthur Park in Los Angeles yesterday. 90 National Guard troops in tactical gear deploying to the mostly empty park. Officials only saying the troops were there to support immigration authorities.
What a disgrace, what's happening in MacArthur Park. What theater.
California Governor Gavin Newsom slamming the Trump administration.
Those National Guard men and women that were out there protecting people are now being used as political pawns.
Who were in the park today were children. It was their summer camp.
Mayor Karen Bass saying there were no threats at the park, only children whose camp was interrupted.
Did this 8-year-old tell me that he was afraid of ICE? Did the 8-year-old tell me that he was afraid of ICE taking his parents?
A recent report said the park is a crime-ridden, open-air drug market, but no arrests were reported during the troops' presence. It comes as federal officials report a spike in violence against immigration agents, with assaults against ICE and Border Patrol personnel up 500% since January. Just yesterday, a man in tactical gear opening fire on a Border Patrol facility in Texas. Police say 27-year-old Ryan Lewis Mosqueda fired dozens of rounds into the building near the McAllen airport. 2 local officers and a Border Patrol employee were hurt. Mosqueda was killed. Investigators found his vehicle spray-painted with the words Cortes Die, a phrase from a Call of Duty video game referring to an anti-government uprising.
Unless we stop the hateful rhetoric against ICE and Border Patrol, comparing them to Nazis, there's going to be more situations like that.
In a separate incident on July 4th, officials say a group of 10 to 12 people in military gear ambushed officers at an immigration detention facility in Alvarado, Texas. The group drawing officers out of the building, launching fireworks and damaging vehicles before opening fire, hitting one officer in the neck. 10 suspects have now been arrested and charged with attempted murder of federal officers.
Yeah. Okay. So can we call it? These are not lovers of good. These are people who are okay with lawlessness. And, for a lot of us, it's like, well, when did it become okay to be lawless? Well, did you hear the mayor? Did you hear the governor? Their state in the city of Los Angeles, it's gone. The civil unrest is at a point where the police can't even do their jobs because the public will attack them because it's been allowed. But then you have the mayor that turns around and is like, I don't understand why they're here. They're there, ma'am, because you've lost control of the city, which has over 10 million people, by the way. Okay. New York's behind with just 8 million. You have one of the largest cities within the United States, and you have completely lost control of it. Completely. Now, I also wanted to play you a little bit more of the speech from Karen Bass before I play the last video.
To the press conference with the governor. While I was on the way, though, I got alerted that there was a ICE operation, military intervention, who knows, at MacArthur Park. I turned around, we went to the park. I could see a helicopter in the air. I think it was a Black Hawk helicopter. And I saw military tanks. It was the Custom and Border Patrol, and it might have been military on the periphery. To me, this is another example of the administration ratcheting up chaos by deploying what looked like a military operation in an American city. So I went to MacArthur Park because it is very important that the truth be told about what happened there. Now, you can spin it any way you like, but in my opinion, it's a political agenda of provoking fear and terror. Frankly, it is outrageous and un-American. Who were in the park today were children. It was their summer camp, their summer day camp. Those kids now have no activities this afternoon. They have to stay inside. They were ushered inside so that they didn't get exposed to the troops that were walking in formation across their playground area. We did not want the children to be aware that it was ICE. Although I do have to tell you that I went and I spoke to an 8-year-old. I never let on what was going on upstairs. But did this 8-year-old tell me that he was afraid of ICE? Did the 8-year-old tell me that he was afraid of ICE taking his parents and he didn't think it was good to take people away? So understand that that 8-year-old knows enough of what's going on that he's already traumatized in anticipation. And I don't know if he had a sixth sense or not to know that they were upstairs. But I think it's pretty dramatic that a child said to me that he was fearful of ICE. So what I saw in the park today looked like a city under siege. I just think it's important that we continue to tell the truth to the American people. There was no protest. There was no disorder that required that.
Okay, so she's saying there was no protest and there was no disorder that required that, but they were obviously out there for a reason. They're not just going to deploy military personnel for no reason. That's not a thing. So, Chris, thank you so much for reposting the stream. Now I want to play one more video, and it does include Karen Bass, but I wanted you to see her speaking on this before playing that video, just to give you some background of where she's at. It's like, ma'am, if the military is in your city, it's because you've lost control. That's why they're there. And instead of giving a press conference, maybe you should be on the phone with ICE, you know what I'm saying, DC, the National Guard. Maybe you should be on the phone with them to find out, okay, why are you there? Because as you heard in the prior video, yeah, it is an open air drug market. I grew up in California. Now, I grew up more so in Orange County, but I would visit Los Angeles in that area. I know what they're talking about because when I was growing up, you could go there. You could spend time with your family. You could have a picnic. You can't go there now. Between the homelessness and the drug dealers and the gang activity, you can't be there with your family. So why in the world would you even have children over there? Like, it's scary being in MacArthur Park. It's crazy. But let's see.
ASAP. My comment
See?
is they need to leave, and they need to leave right now.
She saw the cameras
The
and went
operation
nuts.
ended. Fox News spoke exclusively with Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino, who had tough words for Bass.
The federal government is not leaving LA. I don't work for Karen Bass. The federal government doesn't work for Karen Bass. We're going to be here till that mission's accomplished, as I said, and better get used to us now because this is going to be normal very soon.
He's calling for you to get used to it. What is your response?
I'm not going to get used to it. I'm not going to get used to it.
Yes, you are.
Last I checked, I was elected to be mayor of the city. That did not include a federal takeover.
Oh.
So either you believe in democracy or you don't.
Oh, she's fighting. She's going to fight it.
We had 50 teams out today spread
50
across
teams.
Los Angeles. So with those 50 teams, you were with one of those 50 teams. So our goal here at MacArthur Park, as well as anywhere in Los Angeles, is to go after that Title VIII mission. We're here to arrest them. And the operation is going to be over when we complete the mission.
Meanwhile, Governor Newsom came to Southern California
Governor Newsom.
today to mark 6 months of wildfire recovery. But during that event, those raids were underway.
Oh, he must not
What a
have liked
disgrace.
that.
What's happening in MacArthur Park? What theater?
Governor Gavin Newsom slamming President Trump for the federal immigration raid on MacArthur Park, including horses and troops.
That's the message.
MacArthur Park,
Yo, I will tell you something right now. They had to know the governor and the mayor were both going to be there. Look at this horseback ensemble patrolling through Los Angeles. That was on purpose. That was to send a message. But apparently this park was a well-known illegal immigration hotspot, and now it's a ghost town. You see all the agents here on horseback, and look, where are all the protesters? Where are all the aggressors that were here just a couple of weeks ago? There's someone taking a nap. That's how quiet it is. Look, the street's empty. It's a practical ghost town here. There's nobody around. None of these protesters, none of these activists, none of the illegal immigrants. Look, just a handful of people with one orange sign. Look at them. There's no energy in this crowd. They're not even using their megaphone. No energy. Zero.
But
They're totally depressed. Look. Crazy.
American citizens feel safe.
I feel safe. He doesn't even know what to do. He's trying to film and shout.
Remember, you guys.
Look at this guy with the grenade launcher sitting in the back of a armored personnel carrier. That's crazy. They unfortunately have to dress like this because just a few days ago protesters were assaulting these agents. But look, where are they? Just a bunch of college-educated people standing there yelling at him, and then the mayor shows up. This is the best part.
Mayor Bass, can we talk to you really quick, Channel 7? What are you doing to protect journalists? All the journalists have been shot, arrested, disappeared. I'm scared to come out and do my job. But what are you doing personally to protect journalists? What are you personally doing to protect journalists?
Oh, they are after her. She doesn't know what to do.
Aaron Bass, what are you going to do?
She doesn't know. She doesn't know what to do. Look, she's being very calm.
Okay, I'm gonna pause this real quick because Chris wanted to say I'm such a fan of ICE. I think I'll get an ICE shirt. Yeah, they need our support because, as you can see, the first video that I showed, that the ICE agents were actually attacked in Texas. So you do have, unfortunately, and I'll probably have to bring out more videos of members of Congress calling ICE Nazis, stoking and inciting violence, right? And they talked about Title VIII, and that's something that I'm going to be talking on about a little bit more tomorrow. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Judge Joe Brown, he'll be on the show tomorrow to really talk about Title VIII and really dive into it and what can be done and what should be done under Title VIII. And so let's continue here with the video. Oh, it says, notice she didn't even say she protects Americans. They hate America. It's to be exploited. Yeah. It is weird, right? They don't talk about protecting Americans. And they keep talking about the democracy. We have a constitutional republic, right? We do. We have a constitutional republic to protect the citizens. And what's happening right now in California, because the governor and the mayor are not protecting the citizens of their state and city, the federal government is coming in to take it over. And it's rare that has to happen. But in this instance, especially in Los Angeles, with the civil unrest that's been created, that's why they are there. That's why we see what we see happening.
Very respectful while she's in the perimeter. And then she totally flips. Watch.
She knows the Olympics. The Olympics are coming in 2028.
Now that she's taking incoming fire from her constituents who want her to stand up to ICE, then she gets right in the face of the camera. He wants his phone back.
Thank you. Yes, my comment is they need to leave, and they need to leave right now.
Look at how quick that happened. Once all these cameras are there, and once ICE said, look, we've already finished our operation, she shows up at the end of the operation, then she gets up and she's like, they need to leave, and this is wrong, and we're not going to stand for this after it's already over. Why wasn't she there talking tough when the operation started? And why does the mainstream initiative to twist this around revolve around troops being in American cities? Like, that's upsetting to some people.
It looked like an armed military invasion.
It was.
14 Humvees, tactical vehicles, federal agents, and National Guard troops, some on horseback, fanning out and marching through MacArthur Park.
Yeah, they went through the whole park. A
surreal show of force by the military and federal officers, not on foreign soil, but in a park where kids were supposed to be at day camp, where street vendors usually work, in the heart of one of LA's densest immigrant neighborhoods.
So I'm gonna pause that. So my whole thing, thank you so much, sassy lady. Good morning to you too. So here's the thing. So these vendors, the street vendors, why weren't you there? You could be there. There's nothing stopping you. I mean, there's still other humans being around. But see, here's the thing. You weren't there because you're probably here illegally. And you don't want to get swept up. That's why you weren't outside. Okay. The children, I can understand. But I'm like, that's really crazy because like I said, MacArthur Park is very crime ridden. And for them to even have children in that park is crazy. But somebody must be protecting the children while they're there. And gives them for NYS governor, he says facts. If it's a ghost town, it's a ghost town for a reason. It's because people don't want to get picked up. Because if they were here legally, if they had any type of legal status, green card, visa, whatever, and they haven't overstayed, they'd be outside and they would be fine. Because there was a little crowd of people on the corner, with their little ICE sign saying, we need to get rid of ICE, right? Gives it says 100. You were on the corner with your little sign, all 8 of you, right, yelling at the ICE agents like that's going to make a difference. But hey, you can peacefully protest. Now that, in my opinion, was a peaceful protest. That's what it looks like. Even if it's 1,000 people, they're still somewhere. They're peaceful. They're not tearing up stuff. They're not causing disruption to traffic. They are there in an isolated area, making their voices heard to create change. But what's we see happening with a lot of these protests is it's creating anarchy and it is creating civil unrest. That is not what we want. That is why that's why they've had to militarize the ICE agents and bring in the National Guard, because California, unfortunately, is in a state of civil unrest.
As the dramatic scene was unfolding, LA Mayor Karen Bass showed up, confronted an agent, used his phone to make a call, and demanded that agents leave ASAP.
Oh, yeah. So, first of all, we're told that it's a military occupation of America, which, frankly, I'm okay with, because there are certain parts of America where you're not even safe and where these ICE agents aren't safe either. And then they try to tell us that the mayor was in total control. Really? I mean, we saw her walking around totally confused just a few moments ago. But there's another reason local officials here are outraged at all of these raids, and it's not what you might think.
And disrupt our economy. Every day they are here, they disrupt the economy and they cost this state and this city and county millions and millions of dollars in real money, but also the kind you can't count. And that's making people scared to leave their houses.
What kind of money can't you count?
To go to school.
Yeah, that's a bigger question. What kind of money can't you count? Huh? What is he talking about? So Gibson says, why do our Black leadership fight for illegal aliens, but not our communities? Didn't we elect them? Or was it the illegal aliens voting? Yeah, because that's who they're pressing for. Like, if you see all the people behind Karen Bass outside of the city councilman standing to, what would be her left, our right, depending on how you're looking, do you see any of us in the background? I don't see any Black people in the background. Now, a lot of people are like, why are you trying to make it racial? I'm not trying to make it racial. This is what happens. You see these two people that are melanated up front? They expect us to vote for them because we're melanated. Okay? But they're not going to protect us. They're not going to do what's in the best interest of us. And when I say us, I'm talking about the capital us, the United States. They don't care. They've been put there and placed there to destroy everything. And all the while they're standing there like, oh my gosh, we're losing money. We're losing economy. Yeah, you've been losing it. Duh. Do you not remember the Adidas stores and the Mac stores being completely overrun by civil unrest, by the way, that you didn't shut down in the downtown area? Really? Really? You couldn't even go to your office without the National Guard standing out, protecting you from the civil unrest right outside of your offices. How soon we forget. They had to be there to protect you. You couldn't even get in and out of the building. But now here you are. We're losing money, and we're losing the kind of money that you can't get. What? What are you talking about? Really, sir? But these are the people that are voted in. They're not voted in by Black Americans. I'm just saying. Because guess what? In that area that they're protecting, it used to be, I would say about maybe 70% Black Americans. It's maybe 10% Black Americans, maybe. And I'm being gracious. It's about 70 to 80% Hispanic. Okay? Because that's who they're catering to. They're not catering to any Black people. They're not. They're just using the face of Black people to make it look good. Yeah. To make it look like, hey, we have this whole, united front. No, you don't. No, you don't. You're okay with illegal immigration. You're okay with people being here illegally. And the federal government has stepped in to say, no, your reign of terror is over, and we're going to stop you from abusing the citizens in the United States. And Derek says, wow, we are being pushed out everywhere. Yes, we are. Santa Ana, California is another example. It used to be about, I want to say 65, 70% Black Americans. It is 99% Hispanic. Yeah. You can look at the demographical changes over time throughout the state of California. And it's because it's been allowed. Because whenever there's been mass migration of people from different parts of the world that are of Latin descent, they put them in predominantly Black areas. Now, you don't see this issue happening in Beverly Hills. You don't see this issue happening in the Palisades. You don't see it. But in Altadena, where it was predominantly Black, they burned it down. Those people aren't going to get their homes back because they're trying to turn that into 15-minute cities. And guess who they'll probably put there predominantly as well? Not Black people. I can tell you that right now. Hey, Unc, thank you so much for reposting the stream. So let's get back to the video.
And to the doctor and to call the police or the fire department when something is wrong.
Oh my goodness.
We can't find any other city in the country, small or large, where this is happening. We know there are lots of parts of the country where there are lots of undocumented people in agriculture, for example. We don't.
Yeah, but here you are running a sanctuary city, and when they come out and say that these raids are disrupting the economy, that must mean that the entire economy of this whole place is built on the foundation of illegal immigration.
We don't see them in other cities of our size or smaller. So it looks like this is a deliberate attempt to harass and terrify Los Angeles. Today, as the mayor pointed out, is the 6-month anniversary of the Palisades fire. There's supposed to be a big event.
He's still coughing from the
progress,
fire.
What's been done in the Palisades. The mayor was here. The governor was in town to do that. And this just seems like a stunt to take away from that good news for the city of LA.
Okay, so he's...
Okay, I'm going to have to pause it right there. What good news? You burned down these people's homes and y'all burnt them down. And you sat there and you watched it happen. You made sure that the water supply was messed up. And then you blamed it on the fire department when it was your decision making, Karen Bass, that did that. When it was your decision making, Governor Newsom, that did that. And then you told these people they couldn't move back into their homes. And you smiled and you laughed about it. You basically danced on the ashes of their homes. What are you celebrating in 6 months? What celebration is there? Because I don't know. Anybody out there, have you heard about these people getting their homes back? Their property back so they can rebuild? No one's heard of anything. So yeah, I'd like to find out a little bit more about this celebration.
Mad that when the governor and the mayor came into town to brag about their non-accomplishments, ICE went in there and accomplished something by sending the message that illegal immigration's not going to be tolerated. And what's fascinating is he's okay with raids and deportations as long as they happen in some other state. I mean, that's ridiculous. What a statement. He said, go somewhere else and do your raids. Just don't do it here. Really?
It's happening because, Jesse, there's an insurrectionist movement in the Democratic Party that is inspiring domestic terrorism against ICE.
That's right.
When you have the mayor of Los Angeles mobilizing agitators, mobilizing the mob against ICE, saying that federal law enforcement has to leave her city. This is a settled constitutional question. Federal law is the supreme law of the land. You cannot nullify it. You cannot succeed from it. It is the law of the United States of America.
That's right.
So these insurrectionist Democrats are every day engaging in rhetoric that is incentivizing, that is encouraging, that is fomenting violent terrorist attacks against ICE and ICE officers. Not only in the shootings that you've seen recently, but ICE officers are being doxxed. Their families and children are being threatened. Their addresses are being posted online. They are being subjected to a campaign of terror by these radical Democrats. Why, Jesse? What is this all about?
What's fascinating is that other news report was very enthusiastic about giving us the exact details and very clear images of who it is that's in charge of these operations.
This is the man reportedly in charge of immigration operations in L.A., Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino. These photos were taken of him on scene at MacArthur Park. Fox News reporting this is the man Bass spoke to when she demanded agents leave.
Perhaps there are people sympathetic to these agitators who wish this would all go away.
This is the central struggle in the West. The Democrat Party's objective is to flood the West with millions upon millions of illegals from the developing world, from the poor nations of the world, the failed states of the world, the collapsing states of the world, believing that in so doing, they will collapse the West, they will collapse the middle class, they will collapse the population that has lived here before the migrants came. And in so doing, they think in the rubble of that, they can rule. They can sit on top of the pile of ashes. Ask yourself this: why is it that Democrats are so insistent that unlimited numbers of illegals from countries that are incapable of managing their own affairs come here? Countries that have no history of successful self-government, and they want unlimited numbers of illegals from those countries and refugees from those countries to come here with no chance at the pace, the scale, the scope of arrivals at being able to assimilate and integrate into the American way of life.
Yeah, and now in California, they're paying for that. They're offering people who are in the country illegally over there free health care and benefits. And I guess if they don't do that, people might leave their state, and then their whole economy is just going to implode on itself like it happened just yesterday when ICE agents went through a park that was a well-known hotspot for illegal immigration. What do you think about all of this? Does California rely on illegal immigration? Are they panicking because that's now about to all go away and is just vanishing before the eyes of the mayor and the governor? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. See you.
Yeah, and that's Cash Jordan. So definitely give him a follow on YouTube. He does a lot of videos just all over the country, you know, different hotbeds. Like right now, he lives in New York, but he, you know, posts videos on New York and Los Angeles. You know, I like his take, his coverage. But yeah, you know, to what Stephen Miller was saying, it's like, you're not going out to get the best and the brightest. You are taking in people from failing countries and expecting us to do better. We're not doing better. Okay. And somebody else, I was watching another video, because I've always wondered growing up, I was like, how do people who can't speak the language have stores and businesses over people who have degrees in business? In their own neighborhoods, they can't open up a business. They can't get the loans. They can't get the merchandise. But somebody from a third world country who can't even speak the language, they can have a whole store front in their neighborhood. But now the veil has been lifted. It's being lifted. And Derek says they do that because they think they will be easy to control. Exactly. And they are controllable, right? Because they're constantly under threat of deportation. And it's sad, but it is what it is. And that's what's happening. And it's one of those things, you can't deny it. You can't walk away from it because it is what it is. Yeah. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back. We'll cover some news. And this is Women in Wellness Wednesday open mic. Hopefully we'll have someone join us here later in the program. One of our women in the community doing some great work out there. I reached out to her last night, so I'm hoping she'll be able to join us between the 8 and 9 o'clock hour. But thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, and I'll see you guys on the other side.
At All Sides, we believe unbiased news doesn't exist. To get more clicks and make more money, media outlets often report news with a left, right, or sensational slant, either to suit their own agenda or because by telling us what we want to hear, we'll come back for more. Several news outlets in the center do a good job of portraying both sides equitably, but for the most part, American news media is biased. Bias isn't necessarily a bad thing. The key is to get multiple perspectives. But making matters worse, social media and internet search results are heavily filtered, showing us the most popular opinion or results that match our preferences and make us happy. That means we're all living in filter bubbles, where we're only exposed to viewpoints we already agree with, making us less informed and less tolerant of different people and ideas. At All Sides, we give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it? All Sides has created a patented, fair, transparent process to rate the media bias of hundreds of news outlets and writers. We assess each media source and rate them as far left, center, lean right, or far right, allowing you to quickly identify different perspectives. All Sides is constantly evolving our media bias engine. The more you participate, the better our ratings will be, and the better our news coverage will be. Go to allsides.com to get involved.
We're doing a special segment called Wealth Management, because as much as we need to stay physically well and mentally well, right? We also need to stay spiritually well, but there's also wellness within money management. And I have a wonderful guest that I wanted to bring to you guys today. Her name is Sonia Smith, and she is the owner of Wealth in Motion. So let me bring her to the stage. Hey, Sonia, how are you?
Hello, great. Thank you so much for inviting Wealth in Motion Consulting today.
Oh, thank you. I forgot. I thought the consulting part, you guys. So Wealth in Motion Consulting. And again, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're going to definitely give us some information on wealth management, but I just wanted you to give a little bit of a background about yourself before we get into it.
Well, I have a degree in international business and Spanish double major, and I have done business, international business, and traveled the world. So I worked in Doha, Qatar in the Middle East, and I was an executive at a hospital in charge of their wealth, their commercialization. And another key component I worked was I was a director at a specialty pharmacy where I was in charge of $1.3 billion worth of contracts. So okay. I've dealt with money a little bit. And then on the a little bit on the entrepreneurship side, I've owned several businesses where I've invested in commercial real estate. I've done taxes. I've done a little bit of mortgages. So I've had experiences across the board. So I can give a broader view of your portfolio and how you do your wealth versus someone who only works for a particular company that only offers insurance or only deals with your IRAs, or only deals with your stock account, or so I give you a broader view to show how they can interchange and how you can use it and maximize all of your wealth.
Nice. So let's get into one of the topics of, 401ks and IRAs together. I know those are two things that people tend to invest in. When I was in the working sector before, becoming an entrepreneur, 401k was definitely big. And then my sister, she told me about how she invested into an IRA. So, can you tell us a little bit about those?
First, I'll start off with the definition of what's the difference. So the 401k is what you have and you give into while you're employed for an employer. So it is pre-tax money that gives you a tax benefit. So you don't pay taxes on this money. And many employers do matching. So some of them do matching up to 3%, 6%. I would say as far as your wealth management, this is one of the number one ways that you can start off by investing, especially if your employer is matching. You do want to do the minimum with the matching. So that's pre-tax. Then say you leave the company, right? So after you leave a company, you take that, if you're vested, that 401k money with you, and you can do whatever you want to with it. Most people don't know that, and they leave a company and they don't know that. So the second type of IRA is an after-tax IRA. So after you've gotten your money, you taxed it, you can say, hey, I'm going to put it in the Roth. It's called a Roth IRA. And that Roth IRA where you put your money grows tax-free because you pay taxes on the money that went in. And then say you put in $10,000. After 20 years, that $10,000 is $250,000. When you start pulling it out of retirement, you don't have to pay taxes on the growth at all. So now the U.S. has also, government has allowed individuals to put in, it's up to like $7,000 if you're under 50, $8,000 if you're over 50. A year you can put into an after-tax IRA. So you have your 401ks and you have your after-tax. One strategy I give people too is to take, when you leave an employer, you can take sections or all of your 401k money and you can have the taxes taken out of it and turn it into an after-tax vehicle. The benefit is when you retire, then you won't have to pay taxes on it either. The other second thing to keep in mind is that if you take a 401k and you pass away and you leave it to your children, it becomes taxable income to them.
Okay.
Especially if they're in their prime earning years. They only have, I think, 5 years to draw all the money. It adds to their income and their taxes. So you might be thinking that you're leaving your kids a nest egg, but that nest egg might cause them more problems in the long run. So it's good to convert that money, especially if you're thinking about leaving it in your estate to your children.
Okay. And now, is there a way to find lost money like 401ks from an old job? Because I know I did leave a company, and luckily I had a Charles Schwab account with another company. And so I was able to use.
And they linked it together. I've had people that said, where does $900 come from? I didn't know I had it, right? So yes. I think the first step is to call your old employer if they still exist and speak to their HR department. Their HR department can direct you, like if it's with Fidelity. And you have some companies that change management companies of these monies a lot. So they might have been with Fidelity and now they're with Charles Schwab and now they're with this one and that one. It could get confusing. So call the employer and also and ask the HR department. I have other people that I've consulted or did consulting with, and they have companies have gone out of business.
Oh wow!
So the company's gone out of business, and they don't know what happened to that 401k money. So so you have to, and I think that I think there might be a government website. I'll do some research on that where you could try to find it. But the key is you go back and find that lost money. I have one case here. I had a young lady that was struggling financially, and she says, I have no investments in the future. I never did anything. I don't have anything to invest, Sonia. And I asked her, I said, well, what about old 401ks? She said, well, I did some substitute teaching over the years with the school corporation. So this individual went and called the school corporation, and just from her over the years substitute teaching, found out she had $30,000 that she did not know she had. $30,000.
Money on the table.
Money on the table. There's so many you out there that might have money on the table. So look, I'm going to say this catchy phrase. You know, everybody's running around saying, where those fans at? I'm going to say, where those 401ks at? Okay, go find those 401ks. And if you find those 401ks, I guarantee you, I can show you what to do with them and how to make big differences in your wealth. I mean, that is money on the table that we can really multiply for investment in real. You can use them to buy real estate. Many people don't know that. You could buy gold, you could buy crypto, you can invest in private equity. We have all kind of vehicles to make you money with money you just got sitting out there and you don't even know what's going on with it.
Right. And with that, as you're stating, once you find it, well, how do you really control it? You know what I'm saying? Like, how does that really come into play?
So that's a very good question. You can roll it. There's a couple ways that I would suggest people doing. there's one way is you can open up a Charles Schwab account. Now these accounts are free. You don't have to go through anyone else. So you can open up Charles Schwab. I think Charles Schwab bought out TD Ameritrade. So I think Charles Schwab is like the number one that I use and recommend. I know there's some people that use E-Trade. Now Robinhood has one and all of that, but I stick with Charles Schwab. I just like Charles Schwab. But you can do that. The second thing that you can do is if you find a money manager that you like, you can roll it over to a money manager. The third company that I like to do, like I have all my IRA funds except for my Roth in a company called Equity Trust Company out of Ohio. It's called Equity Trust. So you can roll the money into Equity Trust, and then you can do what you want to with that money. You could buy real estate, you could buy crypto, you could buy gold. You can form partnerships with other people. Like say you don't have enough money to buy a rental property or anything like that, but you and another person can put your IRAs together and buy that property. You could use the IRAs as leverage and get what's called a non-recourse loan, where you just put 40% down from the IRA on the property and you can have a loan on the rest. There's so many different options. But the first step is go find that IRA, those 401ks and IRAs, go find them. You can go to www.wealthinmotion.net and set up a free 30-minute consultation, and we could talk about your financial situation and look at ways to help you. Like I can help you start a business. I can help you start a nonprofit. I can help you invest offshore and get some of those historical returns of 30%. I can help you in a lot of different ways there. So that's what Wealth in Motion does. Wealth in Motion evaluates your wealth, and we're changing it. It's in motion. We buy low, we sell high, whether it's real estate, whether it's stock, whether it's looking at your retirement money and putting it in the right place.
Yes. And thank you so much. Now, just so that my viewers know out there that, yes, you get a free consultation, but if you become her client, she has graciously going to give a 10% off code for you guys. Just let them know that, yes, you watched Unfiltered Vision News here, and the code is UV10 off. That's UV10 off. The code is right there across the screen for you guys, so that when you do get your free consultation, you can see different ways of investing your money, but also making your money. Because right now, the banks are crazy. Everybody's really strapped. Some people are, but again, with all of the ideas that have been shared here, there is a way to make your money, keep your money, and reinvest your money, right? So you can continue that perpetual cycle. So I definitely want to thank you, Sonia, for coming here and sharing Wealth in Motion with us. Is there anything you want to leave our viewers with?
I just want to say that no amount is too small to get started. Just get started. People have these bears in their mind. I'm going to save up this amount or that amount. You could start with $10. I have one lady that worked with Equity Trust. She had $1,500 in her IRA. Wow. She took that $1,500, bought a lot that she knew that Walmart was projected to go there, and that $1,500 turned into $5 million. Wow.
Okay. Well, proof is in the pudding. Thank you so much again for being here with us on Unfiltered Vision News. And again, guys, that code is UV10 off. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Sonia. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, guys, and that will do it for our wealth management segment. We're going to do more, and we're going to bring you more ideas of how to save in this down economy that they talk about, but there always is, that ram in the bush, as they like to say. So thank you so much for joining us for this segment, and we will see you right after this break.
browsers of today are broken. They've been overtaken by a barrage of sneaky and annoying ads, trackers that follow your habits, and cookies that build profiles, and all sorts of other internet clutter that's taking precedence over the content that you want to see. In fact, these useless bites can take up to a whopping 50% of page load times, with a third of it anxiously trying to learn more about you. To make matters worse, some ad blockers are even letting ads through when large advertisers pay them. But do you really want a leaky ad blocker? It's because of these very reasons that we developed Brave, a new browser that kicks internet crud to the curb and makes it faster, safer, and better to surf the web than your current browser. With Brave, everything you need is built right in. We integrated technology that automatically blocks trackers, annoying ads, and shields everything that can cramp your style and destruct your privacy. With it, you can expect increased speeds nearly 2 times faster on laptops and up to 4 times faster on mobile. And unlike any other browser, Brave allows you to support your favorite publishers with automatic micropayments, so it's a win-win for you and your favorite sites. To top it all off, Brave is open source, because we truly believe it's our web and we need to fix it together. So ask yourself this question: do you want a web browser made for the internet of today? If so, try Brave. It's faster, safer, and ad-free.
And good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. I am your host, Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and thank you so much for watching that segment on wealthinmotion.net. And again, that code is UV10 off. That's UV10 off. And thank you so much, Gibson from New York, saying great show this morning. And also good morning to you, Sal. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News. So we're going to get into all sides. Yeah. So Trump suggests copper tariffs, federal takeover of DC government in cabinet meeting. That's interesting. Copper tariffs. I would never think about having a tariff on copper, but let's see what we're talking about. So President Trump held a cabinet meeting on Tuesday where he touched on topics from the flooding in Texas to the war between Russia and Ukraine to tariffs and Jeffrey Epstein. So the tariffs and trade. So following the announcement of new tariffs on Japan, South Korea, and 12 other countries, Trump proposed an additional 50% tariff on copper imports. He also threatened a 200% tariff on pharmaceuticals imported into the U.S. Very soon, no timeline was released for the copper tariffs. However, details on pharmaceutical tariffs are expected at the end of the month. Wow, 200%. Because when I see what he's doing with the tariffs, he's always said, okay, we're trying to make this reciprocal. We are trying to, make this even. 200%. So, we've been taken advantage of for a long time. If you got to raise them to 200%. But with that just lets me know, and it should be an outcry to everybody else, we have some of the best pharmaceuticals around. It's called our food. If we can get our food unprocessed and natural, right, without chemicals. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to do a segment on a chemical called Apeel, A-P-E-E-L or something like that. It's by Bill Gates, and it's basically a preservative type chemical to make produce look fresher longer. Look, we don't need things to stay fresher longer. We just need healthy food. We don't need GMOs. We need healthy food. I need people to understand that. And I find it crazy that our FDA continues to approve things that are detrimental to the rest of society, because trust me, he's not eating his own product, nor is anybody else in his house or the people that he hangs out with. They're not eating it, but they want you to eat it. They want me to eat it. And we're just not going to do that anymore. We need to learn how to grow our own food and sell our own food amongst each other and just starve the system. And they'll figure it out. When they stop making money and they're no longer at the top of the food chain, they'll figure it out. And it'll be okay. I think they'll be fine. So taking over governance in DC, Trump said his administration was considering taking over governance in Washington, DC, claiming it would reduce crime rates there. In response, Senator Mike Lee, a Republican from Utah, tweeted, "It's time to repeal DC home rule and have DC's laws made by Congress." Trump suggested similar action in New York City after criticizing mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani. Okay, now a lot of people might say, what? He wants to take over the governance. It's like, hold on, right? Because if you do that, then the person behind you will do it as well. They might not be as nice as you. This is where I stop and go, okay, calm down. I know what you're trying to do, and I appreciate the heart and spirit of the effort. But at the same time, we have to make sure and ensure that states can do it themselves, right? And that they are called to task and account. So if within Washington, D.C., the mayor and the city officials are not doing their job, then the public, which are their constituents, need to call them to task. They need to run, right, citizens for these positions to do the right thing in these communities. It should not always be up to the federal government to step in. Now, in the situation of California, I understand why the federal government is stepping in because of the civil unrest. Right now, we do not have civil unrest in Washington, D.C. They have a not so great governance, right? It is. It's not wonderful. We'll just say that. It isn't wonderful. But that's why you run candidates who will do better for the city. That is why you encourage people to be on the councils of cities, especially major cities like Washington, D.C., right? But as the federal government, do I want you to, step in and take over in that way? No, I don't. Even in New York, I'm not a fan of Mamdani, and I think the citizens of New York will not vote him in as mayor. I think the writing's on the wall for him. Yes, he's the top Democratic candidate, right? But that doesn't mean he's going to be the mayor. I don't think so. So foreign policy and the media. Trump addressed the ongoing war in Ukraine, criticizing Russian President Vladimir Putin for increasing attacks, saying, "We get a lot of," I'm not going to say that word, BS, thrown at us by Putin. When asked about a recent pause in U.S. weapons shipments to Ukraine, which was reversed on Monday, Trump declined to provide details. The meeting also included broader commentary on foreign policy and media coverage. So with Trump calling the media corrupt, and they are, they will spin a tale so we can see it from a certain perspective. That's why I'm trying to give you guys the news literally from all sides on this website called All Sides, to see who's saying what's on the left, on the right, and center, so that you can see the perspectives of what's happening in real time. Because a lot of these outlets, they are swayed one way or another, and they're not really giving you the big picture. Because giving you the big picture means you can actually make an informed decision, and that's not what they want. They want you constantly in an emotional state to make an emotional decision. And then at a certain juncture, what's going to happen is you're going to get exhausted. You're going to get tired and you'll throw your hands up. And that's what they want. That's really what this comes down to. They want people to walk away in frustration so that the rubble that's left behind, they are still able to control. Just don't let them do it. I just say, don't let them get under your skin. So the Epstein files. Reporters also asked Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi about Jeffrey Epstein, a famous financier and convicted sex offender. Trump responded, "And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable." Earlier this week, the Department of Justice and FBI announced they found no credible evidence that Epstein had a client list or ran a blackmail operation. Let me say that again. Earlier this week, the Department of Justice and FBI announced that they found no credible evidence that Epstein had a client list or ran a blackmail operation. Epstein's had ties to many notable figures, including President Trump, former President Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and more. So I'm gonna walk with me for a second. Okay. When they say that, I don't know if anybody remembers, it was years ago. I think it was maybe in the 80s. And she was called a madam or something like that. And she had this little black book and it had a list of her clients. And some of these clients were prominent people in Congress and other people of means or whatever. She had a physical client list. It was called the little black book, right? They're saying they're finding no credible evidence, but it's almost like what happened with Epstein, it wasn't necessarily out there like that, right? It was more so thought of and not implied, right? People were like, okay, you're hanging out with all these different people. Nobody's taking you to jail. You're able to do all this illicit activity. You've got all these people of means around you, but you're not going to jail, right? So because there wasn't any outright blackmail, they can say, we didn't find anything of outright blackmail. But if somebody films you with a kid and you were in a compromising position, that's kind of blackmail. You got tapes, you have evidence. But because you can't say that it was actually formal, right? That you were formally doing this, like almost like a mob boss, right? Where you were taking people aside and no one came up front to say, yeah, he kind of muscled me and said, if I didn't do this, he was going to expose this. If I didn't do that, he would expose this, right? That is what they were looking for. They were looking for actual substantial evidence that they could say, yes, these things happened. Now with his girlfriend, Maxwell, she brought him these young women. That's what she's in jail for, right? She's in jail for that part. She supplied, right, what they were using, the product. I'll call these girls the product. She supplied the product, right? But it was like, was that product used to actually hamstring these individuals? Now, a lot of people might say, yes, it was because it was kept secretive. It was on an island. You've got the tapes. But because you can't not necessarily tie it, almost like racketeering, to anything substantial, you can sit back and say there's no credible evidence. I just need people to walk with me on that one. Because it's not like there weren't crimes committed. They just can't string it together to actually say, yes, this is blackmail. Yes, this is a client list. And that's what they were looking for. But that's why he was who he was. Yeah, he was doing the dirt that other people didn't want to do. He was compromising people that other people wanted compromised. Yeah. Why do you think a lot of these politicians take tons of money and they're absolute trash? Because at some point they have been compromised and they have to do what they're told. And they're literally dog walked by their necks to do something they don't want to do, but they have to, or they'll be exposed. Yeah, that's where we're at. But that's what happened. But they're not going to tell you that, because you can't put somebody in jail over stuff like that. Yeah. So very interesting how they were just so gung-ho. Oh, we're going to take down that whole situation. Really? You took it down, all right. You have burned in flames behind this. Everybody is looking at y'all, not just sideways, but looking at, Pam Bondi, Cash Patel, Dan Bongino. Everybody's looking at you like, really? Really? We put you in, we got you in here, and this is what you're gonna do? Really? Yeah, people aren't happy with y'all. And I can understand why they're not. And it makes sense why they're not. But it's just unfortunate that they trusted you guys. Now you don't really get to ask for the trust of the people. I'm sorry. You don't get to go back to that well. Now you're just going to have to do your job. Period. Like, you don't get to ask the American people, like, hey, we're going to do this, and then, we need your support. Nope. People have tapped out. So you only get to go to that well one time. And you went there. And it wasn't that you disappointed people. It was that the whole thing just fell apart. Now, what y'all should have done was say, you know what? We are definitely going to look into the Epstein files and, find out for the American people what happened. So then when it flushes out and you find out what happened, people aren't going, well, you said that you were going to take these guys down on day one. That's the problem. See, that's why you can't be putting out rhetoric like that. It's going to bite you in the butt. And it did. It did. It took a whole big juicy chunk bite. But now you don't get to go back. You don't get to go back. And if people let you go back, like, look, I'll let them have it. If they're going to let you go back, I'm not going. I'm going to sit back and just let y'all do what you need to do. So, this is interesting. So Supreme Court still bringing stuff down. It says Supreme Court allows Trump's federal workforce cuts to proceed. So I know a lot of people were screaming about the federal workforce and who he can fire, who he can't. I'm like, he's over roughly I think less than 2 million people. It's a ridiculous amount of people that work for the executive administration. It's not just the people that deal with him personally, it extends. I need people to understand that there's 2 million people just under the executive branch that fall under his purview. So the Supreme Court has lifted a lower court order that had temporarily blocked the Trump administration's plans to reduce the workforce across federal departments. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson was the only dissenting voice in the unsigned ruling, criticizing her colleagues for their decision, which she called hubristic and senseless. However, the Supreme Court left the door open for plaintiffs to challenge any agency's specific plan down the road. The decision could result in job losses for tens of thousands of employees and agencies, including the Departments of Housing and Urban Development, State, and Treasury. And that's fine, because those departments unfortunately balloon and they still get nothing done. So save some money. I'm okay with it. I'm totally okay with it. So in context, the reductions led by DOGE are part of a larger reconstructing plan initiated by a February executive order from President Trump, several labor unions, advocacy groups, and local governments challenged the plan, leading to an injunction issued by U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston, in May that prevented the layoffs and program closures. The Trump administration has argued that the president has a mandate to reorganize the government as he sees fit. He does. This was silly. This should have been a non-starter. But what else are they going to do? What else are they going to do? Their whole thing is resist, stop, impede. Nothing about the American people. Nothing. Look. I need people to start talking about what they're going to do to help the American people. Because this whole resist, stop, impede thing, it's not working. Just so you know. What you're doing, Democratic Party, what you're doing, people that are progressive and liberal, it's not working. No one likes it. You need to figure out something else. You need to figure out another mode of operation. I'm just saying. And this is how the media covered it. So the Washington Examiner, that leans right bias, framed the ruling as part of a broader trim of Supreme Court decisions advancing Trump administration executive orders, describing it as another legal win for the administration. The New York Times, that leans left, wrote that the case represents a key test of the extent of President Trump's power to recognize the government without input from Congress. There's no input needed from Congress on this, by the way. Y'all are wild. Wild. I just told you 2 million people work just for the executive branch. I don't even know how many work for the legislative branch. I got to look that up, but I'm sure it's a lot. But yeah, 2 million people fall under his purview. And if he wanted to fire all 2 million, that's his prerogative. That they fall under his watch, period. It also highlighted the previous lower court ruling. The Hill, which is center, focused on the Supreme Court's caution that plaintiffs could still challenge any specific plan and highlighted Justices Jackson and Sotomayor's rulings, which I think is stupid to do that. So you're still going to leave the door open so they can challenge their job? Look, it's in his purview to fire you. If he wants to get rid of a whole department, he can. If he wants to get rid of a whole agency, look, that's his prerogative. USAID is still not input. It's not written into legislation. It was executive order. They can be completely demolished and reversed. Done. But it got a budget and everything. Sitting around for years, funding all kind of nonsense. Yeah. But they still exist. And they're under the State Department, actually. They ballooned from like 14,000 to like less than 300 people work for USAID. And now that they're under the purview of the State Department, now they can actually be questioned by Congress. Because before they weren't. And they didn't respond to Congress at all. They were just like, we don't have to do anything you say. And this is an executive order. They weren't even made a full whole agency into legislation in law. Yeah. So when I hear nonsense from some of these justices, yeah, because you're at the bottom of the food chain, by the way, let's just talk about that whole thing. You don't have as much power as you think you do. Like, really? Okay. Giving people the option to get their jobs back. You can fight for your job. Yeah, fight for your job. He can still fire you. What? He was being nice about it. Like, gave people severance and everything. I can't. Anyway, so we did talk about the, and this is the bias alert. I like these two. They happen on all sides. This is, ICE conducts raid at LA's MacArthur Park amid local opposition. I mean, what did you guys really think about that? They literally have to have a military presence in Los Angeles now because of the civil unrest that was allowed and, in my opinion, harbored in Los Angeles. The mayor They were like, oh yeah, we're going to put in a curfew. You were forced to do that with the National Guard. But but everything was out of control by then. You had tens of thousands of people on the streets. And as much as they pushed them back, because they were really only protecting the perimeter of the ICE facility and I want to say the mayor's office, the city council building, they were really only focused on protecting that perimeter. Everything else outside of there got destroyed again. And this is after everything had gotten built up. And Los Angeles was really on an upswing to getting back to where they used to be. You know, you're not thinking about the innocent people in Los Angeles, Mayor Bass. You're protecting criminals. And not just protecting them, advocating for them on a daily basis. Like, it's disgusting. And you have a brown face. That makes it even worse. You're melanated. Because I know you're not a Black American. Ugh. And if you are a Black American, shame on you for supporting illegal activity and advocating for it. It's disgusting to see you as a mayor advocating for criminal activity. Sad. And people need to remember all of this when re-elections come up, so they don't ever put you in office again for anything. Like, you need to stay away from the PTA, like everything. Like, you don't get to do anything else. Oh my goodness. So, yeah, I mean, I want to look into this. Look into the US dollar. Oh, good morning, Jay Smooth. Appreciate you. He says, good morning, beautiful Black Americans. Yes, thank you so much for that. Good morning. And it says, is the US dollar losing its global dominance? So the reported drop in the US dollar's value has raised concern about Americans' financial standing and the potential loss of the dollar's global dominance. So Raphael Nam, opining for NPR opinion, left-leaning bias, suggests that the decreasing value of the dollar could be a sign of America losing its financial might. Nam mentions that the US dollar has slumped more than 10% this year, marking its worst decline in the first 6 months of the year since 1973. This slump, according to Nam, is due to a series of chaotic policies and statements by President Donald Trump, including tariffs and attacks on the Federal Reserve, which have shaken global confidence in the U.S. It's not his policies. When we got away from the gold standard and we just started living on air and paper, that's what messed up the dollar. Yeah. Because what it's based on can fluctuate so far left and right because it's not based on a precious metal. And the one thing that Donald Trump actually wants to get back to is the gold standard. If you missed it, Mr. Nam, I guess you did. You missed it. He wants to get back to that. But all currencies fluctuate. The dollar has just been easier to use, and it's been dominant because of the backing beyond gold currency within the United States. Yeah. So yes, we have our paper money that can fluctuate. And I'll be glad when we do get back to the gold standard. But that, just points back to, right, like what I was talking about earlier in that segment, having wellness in our wealth that we can accumulate, right? We need to make sure that we're diversifying our wealth and we're not just putting everything in one basket. I buy different currencies and hold them like stock. Yeah, you can do that. and you can invest however much you want to or however much you don't want to. You can kind of write out your future the way you want to. You do not have to be subjected to just being in one place. But that takes you getting up off the couch, right? And doing the work and actually doing the research. Here on the show, I can give you as many outlets as I can and resources as I can, but you still have to do the work. And that's what we have to get back to. None of this is going to be easy. But if we put some effort into it, it'll be worth it. So from the center, Market Watch featured an opinion piece focusing on the implications of a weak dollar for average consumers' spending and saving power. While the dollar still holds the leading position among global currencies, the authors note its role has diminished. The article mentions that changes in U.S. fiscal and trade policies, persistent government deficits, and threats to the independence of the Federal Reserve are factors that could undermine the dollar's dominance. Interesting. Threats to the independence of the Federal Reserve. First of all, the Federal Reserve isn't federal. They had an act that was written in, and they exist because the United States allows them to. They could be gone tomorrow. That's how weak the Federal Reserve is. But unfortunately, they've been allowed to be a part of our U.S. economy because the whole point of having them is to measure and monitor our financial situation. Like that's the point of even having them, but it's nefarious in that it can hamstring the U.S. economy as well. I think we would be better off without the Federal Reserve. We already have a treasury. We don't need them. They are an impediment to the United States. And people have said it for years and decades that they want to get rid of them. Get rid of them. Grow some brass ones in Congress and do your job and get rid of them because you can. Because it would take an act of Congress to get rid of them, not a convention of states because they're not in the Constitution, by the way. Do your job, Congress. That's all I'm saying. So from the right, Newsmax opinion presents a more alarmist view with Arthur Max Becker suggesting that BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, nations are laying the groundwork for a parallel financial system that could potentially disrupt the U.S. dollar's dominance. Becker highlights the bloc's ongoing efforts, such as a cross-border payment platform to reduce reliance on the dollar, and the idea of a shared BRICS currency backed by gold. However, it also notes internal tensions within the BRICS bloc with differing levels of enthusiasm for rapid expansion and integration. Yeah, because, BRICS looks great. They do. But can they work together? That's the question. So Dr. Aya Aduja says, that's the biggest gag of them all, the Federal Reserve. It is. It is. And people don't see it because it has the word federal in it. So people just assume that it's a part of our Constitution. They assume that it's actually a federal agency. It's nothing. It has zero to do with the federal system. But it can hamstring us. And they allowed it. Our Congress allowed this act to be written. They supported it. They did it. Jekyll Island, all that stuff happened. It all happened. But guess what? In an instant, it can't be gone. It would just take an act of Congress to do it. But will they do it? Or are they owned to the point where they will not do what's right by the American people? It's time for us to start putting people in Congress that want to do right by the American people. And whether they are Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Redemptionists, right? That's who we need in office. We no longer need to put people in office that do not care about the people of this country or this country, period. We need to get back to it. So with that, we will take a quick break and we will see you guys on the other side. And welcome back to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. I'm your host, Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And thank you so much, Tatas, for reposting the stream. And good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So I do have a guest with us this morning, Miss Consuelo. I'm going to invite her to the stage. And I'm so happy that she's here because she can share with us just the things that she's been doing in the community these past couple of weeks. So thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Oh, look, we got to do mic check, y'all. Because this is it. This is us. This is how we do it.
Okay. Well, Grand Rising, thank you for inviting me back, Dr. Nichols. So I know you said it's Wellness Wednesday, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So one of the tips I'd like to give today is positive affirmations. And we know sometimes when we talk, people say you talk to yourself and about these positive affirmations. It has been proven within 21 to 30 days. You continuously say a positive affirmation, you over time begin to believe that. And so, we have a rule of thumb. You got to believe it. Then you speak it and you achieve it, right? So with the positive affirmations, it could be anything that you could say about yourself that you are powerful. I can do this. Anything along those lines that reinforces the positiveness of whatever you're attempting to do. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Hey, with today and everything that's happening, there's so much negative that it's easy to have those negative thoughts and focus on those instead of the most positive things about ourselves, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So you wanted me to talk about what I've been doing in the community?
Absolutely.
Okay, so just recently, I just came back from Washington, D.C. As you know, we went to rally at the Supreme Court and for the 14th Amendment to show the Trump administration that, yes, we are very supportive of their interpretation, them going to the Supreme Court and letting the Supreme Court know, hey, there are grassroots activists out here that are paying attention and that we align with what Trump administration is doing regarding the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship.
Nice. I'm so glad. And I'm glad you guys were safe because I saw that there were some counter protests out there also.
Yes, you're talking about the No Kings rally.
Yes.
Yeah. We didn't expect them to be as close to us and what we had set up for our days. Like one day, on July 3rd, we were at the Supreme Court, on the steps of the Supreme Court. And then on that following day, we were in Lafayette Park, which is perfect. And so then we did see them in the area. And so that we did go and, speak and let everyone know our position as well.
Okay, good. They are a very interesting organization to me because of the other supporting corporations that support them, right? And how they've actually gone against ICE. And in my opinion, in June 14th, when they had that their rallies, all around the country, they really kind of set the pace and the tone for how people receive and treat ICE. Right. And it's almost like, throwing the rock, hiding your hand, going, well, we didn't say anything. Yes, you did. You fomented all this violence. And now that the Trump administration has to come out with the National Guard, militarizing ICE, literally, so to keep people safe. Now you want to cry and act like, well, why are you sending them here? Why are you doing this to us? I mean, what is your take on that?
Yes, we were told a lot of the individuals are actors, right? They solicit throughout
Mm.
the nation for these individuals, and this is something that they do. So we were under the impression, and because it was a small group of them, it wasn't a great a group. You know, I would say it was at least maybe 200 people. That's what we estimated, and they had all these different characters. um so yeah, we saw someone that was running around as a horse, or a donkey. We saw someone dressed looking like a witch and holding a sign. Yeah, so it was just really performative. So when you speak about these corporations funding this, we believe these individuals are paid actors, so it makes sense to create this supposedly a new civil rights movement or something.
Wow. And it's crazy because I'm like, okay, there are some of us out here that we want good things, right? And we want things done in our self-interest. We don't want to destroy the country. But now you're coming like, yeah, destroy the country with us. And do what? Like, what's your plan? You know what I'm saying? What is your plan once everything is destroyed? You know, and I had played, well, there was a video with Stephen Miller in it, and he was talking about how, you know, the Democrats just want to destroy everything and then dance on the ashes and come back and rule over the rubble. Like, what kind of mentality is that?
Yes, it's not productive at all. It's not progressive. At this point in time, we see, or we have, how we see how this administration is attempting to rectify all of the issues that help the country to regress, right, with the
Mhm.
prior administration. And now, as this administration is attempting to rectify those issues or those problems, they're giving so much pushback and resistance.
Mm.
So if you want the country to progress, and we know that we were going into a recession because we had such an influx of beings into the country that was
Mhm.
sending money out of the country, not paying it and saying, it's staying and helping our economy here. Now you have a president that says, okay, we're going to rectify these issues. They're still wanting to push back, resist, and it does send a message that they don't want the country to progress and move forward, and they're going to stifle it any way possible.
Wow. Yeah. And that's scary. I mean, even when I was before you came on, I was going over an article regarding the Supreme Court, you know, with the workforce, you know, so how President Trump, he's over the workforce under his executive branch, and he can fire people. And I was saying, you know, he can fire, he can get rid of who he wants. But they left the door open in the Supreme Court, stating that if somebody wanted to, if they wanted to challenge, right, as an individual, not as a court, but as an individual, they would leave that door open for them to challenge the employment. And I'm just like, okay, regardless of whether it's President Trump or anybody else as president, the executive branch, it falls under their purview. If they want to
Yeah.
fire 10,000 people, because they can do that. Like, you decided to work for the federal government owes you nothing. And it's weird because they want to make almost like this relationship that, you know, we can just overrun the government when we want to without saying it, right? I'm just like, it's weird to me what's happening in the Supreme Court. I mean, in your opinion, do you really think, because some people have already said that birthright citizenship has been classified illegal, right? Only because they've already established that the lower court can't challenge the executive branch, right? And so for President Trump to say, okay, we're no longer going to allow this illegal birthright citizenship to go on because it is illegal, does that really call to task the Supreme Court to call it illegal? And our Congress to actually do something about it?
Yes. At this point in time, the executive branch is implementing the Constitution. Right.
Right.
And you have the checks and balances. And hence the reason why the challenging of the executive order automatically kind of rose up to the Supreme Court.
Right.
So the Supreme Court, I do believe, if I've stated this, if they align with the fact that, oh, no, birthright citizenship is just a natural part of the Constitution where anyone can come here, illegals, and they don't have the U.S. doesn't have jurisdiction, and they don't
Right.
have a permanent residence. If they don't align with that, they're saying we do have open borders.
Mm-hmm.
And that would
Yeah.
make me question, are we now officially under a coup d'etat instead of this soft coup d'etat that people are
Right.
speaking of?
Right.
It'll
Right.
be out in the open. Yes, they're not aligning with the doctrine of the Constitution, the doctrine of the United States.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And see, nobody's talking about this in this respect. You know what I'm saying? The conversation that we're having, nobody's talking about this. They can't. You know what I'm saying? They can't, because they would actually have to. Yeah. Yeah. You would actually have to admit that you are working for the very people that are trying to overthrow the government.
And
Right.
also, the other thing is human trafficking. We're seeing a great deal of it, an increase in it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
honestly, when you are bringing your child over here, or you're pregnant and you're having a child here, to me, that's human trafficking.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Because what happens to these people? And that's the downside that nobody really talks about, right? They don't talk about the abuse that goes on with these people. Because, they did write in 2021, the unaccompanied minor aliens. And
Yes.
I've seen certain people mention, they're like, yeah, we have all these unaccompanied minors. It's crazy. How are you going to deport a 5-year-old? First of all, why is a 5-year-old here separate from their parents? Oh, that's right. We actually wrote it in. Congress actually wrote it in 2021. See, nobody's talking about that part. Like, why is that even happening?
Yes. And that's another thing, like Congress, again, I know there's some senators, right, or representatives, Congress people that have sending or creating bills to support President Trump. But
Right.
you would think they will go ahead and make sure this is taken care of, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that we wouldn't continue to have this issue. And it didn't have to go to the Supreme Court. We know that our great ancestor, Barbara Jordan, did this work to revise and redo the immigration system. And nothing has been done. And still today, there's no bill been presented to alleviate the immigration issues we're experiencing here in America. I want to say there was one, maybe one, but we're not hearing of it. You would think it would be something, a hot topic along with the birthright citizenship and executive orders.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, but what do you think about shutting it down administratively? Because I know that they're building a wall, but when I say administratively, saying, okay, we are closed, right, for the next 10, 15 years, and no one can apply for citizenship because of the backlog that we have. No more visas, no more green cards, nothing. Like, shut it down. Like, what do you think about that?
I'm in agreement with that. I have been stating that, and ever since Trump became president and the administration been in place, I have always championed to have an immigration moratorium. We need to reset. And I say 20 years, other individuals have said 50. Some of them are saying 200. but but
I take it all the way back.
Yes, I mean we know there are Americans. They came out yesterday, I do believe, and stated there will be no amnesty because there are plenty of Americans
Yeah.
that can take these positions. So now then, why not just shut it down while we get everything aligned? We know we have all of these new companies or companies coming back to America so Americans can go to work because of the tariff situation. Let's just shut all of the immigration down for now and figure it out and solve these issues and get Americans back into their positions and working and things of that nature.
Yeah. And I think it's just respectful to American citizens and to those that have applied to be here legally, right? Because in my opinion, it's a slap in the face because as much as they're trying to resolve the issue of illegal immigration, illegal immigrants are still being catered to. And you know what I'm saying? And it's crazy. And I know it's got to drive people nuts that have done it the right way. For the people that are doing it the wrong way to be catered to, it's like, wait a minute, I did what I was supposed to do. You're doing it wrong, and people are, kid gloving you. It's sick. But I do have.
Well,
I have
I did say yesterday that if Trump considered, or this administration is considering amnesty, then that
Mhm.
means that we must get our reparations in our office of Bureau of Freedmen Affairs. There could
Yeah.
be nothing less than we could accept as a
Mhm.
voting base that
Right.
said we were against illegal immigration. And now you're going to make these individuals, like I'm just saying, so hypothetically, if
Right.
they were considering that and making them legal, then
Mm.
that's 10 to 12 million people. That means you can also do some things for the Black American Negro freedmen that we
Right.
align with for our demographic and a founding population of Americans.
Absolutely. And Unc says, as quick as these fake rioters hit our American streets across the country, it went away just as quick. Lets us all know it was staged. Yes, very much so. Thanks, Unc, for that. Uh, you know, for that. Yeah. To your point, you saw them in Washington over last weekend. Paid actors.
Yes.
I said on Monday that we're kind of living in the Truman Show,
Mhm.
but we're Truman. Just like, we're all Truman, but we have the 1% that's sitting above, looking down and watching us go against each other. What do you think about that?
Yes, I hear people say all the time that it's about the money, right? It's greed. Yes, it's
Mhm.
money and greed on their end, but we have people power, and more Americans are like, we're not going to accept this type of behaviors. And I
Right.
do believe it's because they keep pushing the boundaries
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
not respecting that the American people have spoken about this administration, right? We voted for
Yeah.
this administration. So let that allow them the space to do the job and the work that we elected them for. So now
Right.
I think the more and more Americans become agitated, irritated, and upset that these other beings keep continuing to interrupt this process that we
Yeah.
voted for,
Mhm.
it's going to become very ugly in America.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so sad. Well, I'll let you have last words.
Well, I am excited about what's upcoming as far as the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship. I do believe and have faith that the current Supreme Court justices will err on the side of the Trump administration. And now we can get some things really aligned for us as well as the freedmen. And then with that, people understanding what is at play here. There are individuals or beings, or I'm not going to say, I'll just say some beings, and they're collaborating, right, to make sure that America doesn't get on the right track, and so that we could prosper. So I think this is a time for us to all collaborate, whether you're a Black nationalist or a white nationalist. It's time for us to come together and make sure we have that people power as Americans to show
Right.
these other beings, you cannot come here, and we're not going to allow you to destroy America, because we the people
Mhm.
rule here. So
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us here. And we look forward to having you again on Unfiltered Vision News. So thanks again for joining us.
thank you for inviting me, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Wow. So, yeah, we're so much closer to a decision with the Supreme Court on the 14th Amendment. And I'm excited to see what happens because right now it's undeniable. that, you know, you got to do right. As President Trump likes to say, the babies of slaves, but we know we are the descendants of slaves. And we are the generation of people that they prayed about. We are the people that they prayed for would be prosperous. For all of their labor, we would be able to benefit from their hard work that they've invested in the country. So thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News for this Women in Wellness Wednesday. Tomorrow we have Mighty Men Thursday. I'm looking forward to having our guest on, Judge Joe Brown. So thank you guys. Have a great one, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye.